This video is just going to be a quick update about the situation on the ground. It is pretty much confirmed by everybody, first of all by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, that the long-awaited Donbass offensive has begun. Large numbers of Russian soldiers started advancing simultaneously along the Donbass Bulge, with offensives occurring in the north, east, and south of this area. In the northern area of this soon-to-be cauldron, south of the city of Izium, which, by the way, is not in the Donbass, it is in the neighboring Kharkov Oblast. The Russian advance is happening across an area which is about 25 to 30 kilometers wide. And at least so far, this offensive has seen significant success. About a dozen villages have been seized from the Ukrainian armed forces, and most notably, the town of Kremenaya, which has a population of around 25,000, has been captured. However, it is reported that even though the administrative building of Kremenaya is seized, this information, by the way, has been confirmed by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, there are still small axes of resistance within the town, which will most likely be cleaned out, if not tomorrow, then definitely within the next 2 or 3 days. The Russian Ministry of Defense has reported a total of 192 airstrikes on Ukrainian positions over the last 24 hours. And this is several times higher than at any point before. So it is without a doubt that the Russian Air Force is flying more sorties now than before, and they are most likely involved in primarily close air support. Videos published by people in Russia also show heavy strategic bombers, that is to say Tu-95s and Tu-160s, flying towards the Ukrainian border, and these videos were filmed in regions that are fairly close to Ukraine, in cities like Tula and Orel. And evidence points towards the fact that these aircraft are going to be somehow involved in this offensive. However, my bet is that they won't be carpet bombing Ukrainian forces on the front lines. They will, if anything, fire air-launched missiles which are going to strike targets such as command posts and other important facilities. By the way, it is also reported that Russia is using its strategic bombers, not just Tu-22s, but also these heavier strategic bombers, to drop heavy 3-ton bombs on the Azovstal factory in Mariupol, where the remnants of the Ukrainian garrison and the Azov battalion forces are located. And this is what the map of air alerts in Ukraine looks like as of today, roughly 9 p.m. Kiev time. It seems that the Russian military is airstriking and destroying various targets through cruise missiles in every single region of Ukraine, with the exception of the southern Kherson Oblast, because this entire oblast is, of course, under Russian control. By the way, this map having every single region of Ukraine be colored in red, every single region being under air alert, is not something new. This happened at least once before on April 15th, when Russia launched an intense barrage of cruise missiles in retaliation for the shelling of several of its villages that were located near the Russian-Ukrainian border. And at that time, every single region in Ukraine was colored in red, even the southern Kherson Oblast, which personally I found to be a bit surprising. The Russian Ministry of Defense also announced that it had destroyed an important Ukrainian logistical center in the West Ukrainian city of Lvov. And various videos clearly show the effects of at least 2 caliber missile strikes, although reports from the ground suggest that there were more like 4 or 5 of them. Finally, a few words on how I expect the Donbass offensive to unfold. I have talked quite a bit about this imminent battle over the last few weeks, and most notable is the fact that there are upwards of 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers in this location. And with around 150,000 attacking Russian soldiers, this may very well be the largest battle that took place anywhere on Earth since the Second World War. Or at the very least, it is without a doubt the largest battle since the Korean War. Big battles like these, or perhaps a more apt term would be general offensives, tend to take up quite some time. At the very least a few weeks. If the fighting drags out, then potentially a few months. Today, Russia has had considerable success in pushing back the Ukrainian armed forces and in seizing multiple population centers. And again, the most significant of these is Kremenaya, which has a population of around 25,000. I do not predict that in the future the Russian forces will be advancing at the same rate. And I say this after reading multiple blogs on the topic, which were written by military experts, most notably the Dryzen report, and also after observing the actions of the Ukrainian military and seeing how their strategy has evolved from the first weeks of the war. The area in this soon-to-be Donbass cauldron, where all of the fighting is taking place, is filled with various villages, small towns, even some large towns, all of which can serve as fortified outposts for Ukrainian soldiers. And because of that, it is rather likely that the Ukrainian army grouping will be completely encircled relatively soon, since the Russians will be rather easily able to annihilate any Ukrainian units that are out there in the open fields. However, there is most likely going to be a lot of bloody urban fighting, and this phase of the battle could potentially last for months. However, I have said this before and I will keep saying it no matter how many angry comments of utter denial I get. The conclusion of this battle is set in stone. The Ukrainian military has absolutely zero chance of winning. And this is blatantly obvious to anyone who has been watching the prelude to this offensive. The Russian force is not only numerically superior and is not only equipped with far better weaponry. Not only are Russian logistics basically unhindered, whereas Ukrainian logistics have been systemically destroyed by the Russian Air Force over the last several weeks. But perhaps the biggest problem for the Ukrainian army in this region is that much of their army grouping, that is to say these 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers, are made up of conscripts. They are made up of people who have been found on the streets, who have been handed their draft notes and were conscripted into the army forcibly. These individuals, by and large, do not want to fight. And even those that do want to fight, even those that have high morale, still lack the experience that units of the regular Ukrainian army have. However, even if there are only 40 to 50,000 experienced Ukrainian soldiers in this area, then going by the precedent of Mariupol, it will most likely take a very long time to root all of them out. I will remind everybody that this contact line in the Donbass has been fortified by the Ukrainian military over pretty much 8 years. So the only questions that remain are not who will win this battle, but rather how long is it going to take the Russians to secure this location and to destroy this army grouping, and what cost will it inflict upon the local population and upon the Russian military in terms of military losses. And that is something that I do not want to make any predictions on just yet. We will have to wait and see how this battle unfolds. The last thing I will say is this: Russia's current strategy has clearly been to destroy, systemically annihilate the Ukrainian military. Russia has pretty much allowed all of these reservists to be shipped into this area, to be placed along the contact line, along with all of the equipment that was transferred from western and central Ukraine to the Donbass. And this force is not going to be allowed to leave the battlefield. It will be annihilated in this battle. Because if this force does try to retreat, first of all, they don't have enough fuel. Second of all, at that point, Russia will most likely start bombing railways and bridges. So Russia's military strategy is to annihilate the opposing force, to deprive them of manpower and to annihilate their equipment, both of which Ukraine already has a serious shortage of. And after this Ukrainian force is annihilated, Ukraine basically won't have anything left to fight with. They will not be able to put up the same resistance that they have up until now. And again, this conclusion can be drawn from the fact that there is already a very clear lack of manpower and a very clear lack of equipment within the Ukrainian armed forces. I will remind everybody that there have been incidents of old men and young boys aged 16 or 17 fighting in the Ukrainian army. This is very indicative of a lack of manpower. Whereas the fact that Ukraine is practically begging Western countries to deliver outdated Soviet equipment that hasn't been modernized, by the way, and there have been multiple instances of Ukrainian forces using either makeshift weapons or weapons that are from the early Cold War or even pre-World War II. All of which, by the way, I have covered in one of my previous videos from a couple of days ago. So, the Ukrainian army is already facing a shortage of manpower and of equipment. After this battle is concluded, it will have about 100,000 soldiers less, and it seems that pretty much all of the Ukrainian army equipment that is in the Donbass will be either captured or destroyed. Not to mention the fact that other equipment will be destroyed over time by Russian airstrikes. That is to say, Ukrainian tanks and armored vehicles which aren't even located in the Donbass. At that point, the Ukrainian military will be nothing but a bunch of territorial defense forces, which, although numerous in number, are not motorized, are not made up of well-equipped or experienced soldiers, and will not be able to stand up against a regular military. And if the losses of Ukrainian manpower are going to continue as they have before, and all evidence points towards this being the case, in fact, all evidence points towards there being even more losses among personnel than before due to the increased tempo of fighting, then it is likely that the number of KIA Ukrainian soldiers by the end of this battle, and after that by the end of this war, will simply be through the roof. And if things continue going the same way that they have up until now, the Ukrainian army simply won't have any manpower left to fight with. In any case, that's what the situation looks like right now, at least to me. Whether or not this analysis is correct, we will have to wait and see. And finally, one last thing that I will say is that this battle is in its opening phase. I expect it to heat up and for there to be a period of more intense fighting before the battle simmers down. So the next few days, the next few weeks, we'll see what is perhaps the largest military offensive that has taken place in any part of the world since the Second World War. And the outcome of this battle will definitely decide the future of Ukraine and of Russia, and most likely will at the very least affect the future of the entire world. With that said, I hope that you enjoyed this video. It's Easter Monday, so to everybody, happy Easter. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button. It helps the algorithm on YouTube. And if you are watching this on YouTube, then please check out my Rumble channel and my Telegram channel. The links to both will be in the video description. Rumble is an amazing, rapidly growing platform which has no political censorship, and by the way, neither does Telegram. And if you are watching this on Rumble, then the links in the description will be to my YouTube and Telegram channels.